Hi, everyone. The pandemic has catalyzed a significant transformation in global supply chains, driven by shifting geoeconomics realities. This shift is characterized by the emergence of regional trade blocs, which are redefining trade dynamics. Meanwhile, intensifying US-China tensions continue to exert profound impacts on international commerce. Additionally, the increasing importance of digital trade and e-commerce is reshaping how goods and services move across borders, marking a new era in global economic interdependence. So, today's podcast is about global supply chains. Stay tuned and stay safe.
All right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling global supply chains, and wow, you guys sent in a ton of stuff on this.
It's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of overwhelming. But that's what we do here in the deep dive, right? So much to unpack.
Absolutely. We'll try to make sense of it all for you.
Okay, so big picture first. What's going on with these global supply chains? Why are they changing so much?
Well, the pandemic really shook things up. I mean, it exposed just how fragile these intricate networks are.
Yeah, it's like we all took it for granted that you could order anything online and it'd just magically show up.
Exactly. And then, bam, suddenly there were shortages, delays, prices skyrocketing.
And it wasn't just the pandemic, right? The world's gotten a lot more, well, tense geopolitically.
Well, yeah, for sure. It's like we're watching this global power shift play out in real time.
Okay, so let's talk about the elephant in the room, the US-China thing. It feels like every time I check the news, there's another trade war headline.
It's a big deal. I mean, these are the world's two largest economies, and they're increasingly at odds.
So the U.S. slaps tariffs on Chinese goods, which, by the way, some of them were up to 60%. Crazy, right? And then what does China do?
Well, they don't just sit back and take it. They retaliate with their own measures, like restricting exports of rare earth elements. You know, those are crucial for all sorts of tech.
Yeah, so basically they're both playing hardball, and the rest of the world is caught in the middle.
Exactly. Companies are scrambling to diversify their supply chains. They're looking for alternatives to China. It's like musical chairs on a global scale.
So who are the winners and losers in this game of musical chairs?
Well, countries like Vietnam, India, and Mexico are attracting a lot of investment. They're seen as potential alternatives to China.
And it's not just individual countries, right?
Right.
We're seeing these massive regional trade blocs emerging.
Right. Like RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership.
Yeah.
It's a free trade agreement between 15 Asia-Pacific nations. That's a huge chunk of the global economy.
And let's not forget about Africa. They've got the African Continental Free Trade Area. It's ambitious, aiming to create a single African market.
Yeah, it's all about boosting intra-African trade, reducing reliance on external partners. It's a really interesting development.
So in this whole reshuffling of global trade, where does Indonesia fit in? I mean, they're right in the heart of Southeast Asia, a region that's being pulled in all sorts of directions.
Indonesia's in a unique position. They've got this incredible potential. I mean, they've got a young workforce, abundant natural resources, and they're strategically located.
It sounds like they're holding all the right cards, but are they playing them right?
That's the big question. They face some serious challenges. Infrastructure is a big one. Their ports, roads, logistics systems. They need some serious work.
The sources you sent mentioned this thing called the Logistics Performance Index. And apparently Indonesia's not doing so hot.
Yeah, they're lagging behind their neighbors. Basically, it means moving goods in and out of Indonesia is more expensive and takes longer compared to other countries in the region.
Ah, so that's a problem if you're trying to attract businesses looking for efficiency.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of bureaucracy and corruption. Those add extra costs and headaches for businesses operating there.
So it sounds like Indonesia's got some work to do if they want to capitalize on this global shift.
They do.
Yeah.
But every country has its own strengths and weaknesses. It's all about how they adapt and play to their advantages.
Speaking of adapting, let's talk about another game changer, the digital revolution. I mean, it feels like the pandemic hit the fast forward button on all things tech.
It's incredible. We're seeing AI, blockchain, the Internet of Things. All these technologies are transforming supply chains in ways we never imagined.
Okay, so I get that tech is a big deal, but can you break it down for me? What does this mean for, like, everyday people?
Think about it. You order something online, and you can track its every move from the factory to your doorstep. That's the power of these technologies. They're making supply chains more efficient, transparent, and responsive to what we need.
So it's not just about robots taking over the world, it's about making things better for consumers.
Exactly. But there are potential downsides, too. Like, what happens to jobs when machines can do them faster and cheaper?
That's the double-edged sword, right?
Hmm.
More efficiency, but also potential job losses.
It's a challenge. But it highlights how important education and retraining are. We need to equip people with the skills they'll need in this new world.
It's like adapt or be left behind, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just about technology. Sustainability is also a big deal these days. Consumers want ethical and environmentally friendly products.
Absolutely. Sustainability is no longer just a nice to have, it's a must have. Companies realize that they need to be responsible if they want to succeed in the long run.
And this is where things get interesting for Indonesia, right? They're a major exporter of things like palm oil, which has been criticized for its environmental impact.
Yeah, the EU's got these new deforestation regulations. They're putting pressure on Indonesia to clean up its act.
So it's not just about economics anymore. It's about values. The world's saying, hey, Indonesia, you need to prioritize sustainability or risk losing access to these important markets.
Exactly. It's a wake-up call for them and for any country that relies on exports.
Wow, it's fascinating how everything's connected. Geopolitics, technology, sustainability, it's all part of this big, complex web of global supply chains.
It really is. And this web is constantly changing and evolving. The pandemic just sped things up a bit.
So what does the future hold for Indonesia? Caught in the middle of all this global upheaval. Can they make it?
That's the million-dollar question, and one we'll dive into right after this.
Hold on. Who said anything about a break? We're on a roll here. Let's keep going. Okay, so picture this Indonesia. They could be a big player in all of this global trade stuff, but they've got these roadblocks too. It's like they're trying to win a race, but they're stuck in the mud or something.
I like that analogy. It works for me. And yeah, one of the biggest things they need to fix is their infrastructure. Like we were saying, their ports, roads, the whole system for moving things around it needs a major upgrade.
Right, so they're stuck in the mud. What needs to happen specifically to get them unstuck? We talked about ports and roads, but what exactly needs to change?
Well, their ports are often jammed up. You know,
Okay.
there's just not enough capacity to deal with all the stuff coming in and out. So things get delayed, it costs more, nobody's happy.
So it's not just about making the ports bigger, it's about everything connected to them too, right?
Exactly. Think about the roads, the railways that take things from the ports to the rest of the country. Those need to be better too. And they need modern warehouses, places to store stuff. Oh, and we can't forget about digital infrastructure these days.
The digital highway, right? That's got to be up to speed too.
For sure. Indonesia has to make sure businesses have good internet access. That's how you do business now. Online transactions, analyzing data, managing those complex supply chains we talked about. It's all got to be connected.
So it's like you said, things have to flow smoothly. Physical stuff,
Mhm.
digital stuff. It all has to work together.
Right on. And that means the government, businesses, even regular people, everybody has to work together.
But let's be real. Building new roads, new ports that takes forever. What can they do right now to make themselves more appealing to businesses?
One thing they've been doing is trying to make things easier for businesses. You know, cutting down on all the rules and paperwork.
Less bureaucracy, faster approvals, that kind of thing.
Yeah, basically making it more attractive for businesses to set up shop there. And it's not just about foreign companies either. It's about helping local entrepreneurs, those small businesses, giving them a chance to grow.
Makes sense. But there's this one thing we keep coming back to: corruption. How much of a problem is that in Indonesia? And are they doing anything about it?
It's a real problem, no doubt about it. Adds costs, creates uncertainty, makes people think twice about investing. The good news is the government's been trying to fight it. They've set up these anti-corruption groups, given more power to law enforcement, trying to make things more transparent.
So they're working on it at least.
It's a constant battle. But if they want to be a serious player in the global economy, it's a battle they have to win.
Okay, so we've talked about the physical stuff, the rules, the corruption. What about the people, the Indonesian workforce? Are they ready to handle all this new global trade?
Great question. Indonesia's got this huge population, lots of young people. That's a real asset. But they need the right skills, the right education to compete globally.
We mentioned digital skills earlier, but what else is important?
Technical skills are important, but it goes beyond that. They need people who can adapt, think on their feet, solve problems. People who can think for themselves and work well with others.
Those soft skills. That's what everyone's looking for these days, right?
Yep. And that means changing the way they teach and train people. Less memorizing facts and more focus on critical thinking, creativity, communication, that sort of thing.
It sounds like Indonesia could really become a center for talent, especially with the whole world competing for skilled workers.
They could, but it takes investment, education skill development, creating an environment where innovation and entrepreneurship can flourish.
And we can't forget about the digital revolution that's changing everything.
Yeah.
How is Indonesia using tech to improve its place in these global supply chains?
They're making progress. E-commerce is booming. Lots of businesses and people are going online. This gives Indonesian businesses a way to reach customers all over the world. Gets them plugged into those global supply chains.
So even a small business way out in the countryside, they could be selling their products internationally because of the internet.
That's the beauty of it. It levels the playing field. Even the little guys have a chance.
But what about people who don't have access to technology or don't know how to use it? Could this make inequality worse?
That's a valid concern. It's really important that everyone has access. They need affordable internet training programs support so everyone can benefit.
So closing that digital gap, making sure everyone's on board, that's key.
Exactly. Creating a system where everyone, individuals, businesses, whole communities, everyone can thrive in this new digital world.
We talked earlier about how important sustainability is becoming. What is Indonesia doing to make its supply chains greener, to meet those demands from consumers and regulators?
That's a big one. They're one of the world's biggest producers of palm oil, and that's been linked to deforestation and environmental damage. But they're starting to realize that doing things sustainably, it's not just good for the planet, it's good for business too.
So it's not a choice between the economy and the environment. You can do both.
Right. They're working on sustainable palm oil production, reducing deforestation, protecting nature. They're investing in renewable energy, ecotourism, things that support a green economy.
So they're trying to be seen as leaders in sustainability.
They are. They see it as crucial, not just to meet international standards, but to create a better future for their own people.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. Infrastructure regulations, corruption, workforce development, the digital revolution, sustainability. It's clear Indonesia has its work cut out for it, but there's huge potential there too.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's complex, it's constantly changing, and the decisions they make now will determine where they end up on the global stage.
So the big question, can Indonesia overcome these obstacles? Can they succeed in this new global landscape?
That's the question everyone wants answered, and it's one we'll tackle in our final segment.
All right, let's dive into that final segment and see what we uncover.
Okay, so we've talked about all the challenges Indonesia's facing with these global supply chains changing and everything. And they've got these opportunities too. It's a lot to take in. But the big question is, can they pull it off? Can they actually become a major player?
Yeah, that's what everyone wants to know, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, it's tough to say. There's no easy answer. But we can look at what's happening and make some educated guesses.
All right, I like a good guess. So what are the key things that'll decide whether Indonesia makes it or breaks it?
I think it boils down to three things.
Yeah.
The government's got to be committed. They need to find the right partners.
Yeah.
And they have to really embrace technology.
Okay, so let's start with the government. We talked about all the things they need to do. Infrastructure, regulations, corruption. That's a lot to tackle. It is. They need to have a clear plan and policies that support growth that's sustainable and benefits everyone. They need to attract foreign investment.
Yeah.
But also support local businesses, and they have to prioritize education and job training, so their workforce is ready for what's coming.
From what I've read, it seems like the government knows they need to do more. Like there's a sense of urgency.
Yeah, I think they're starting to realize that they can't just sit back and watch things happen. They have to be proactive.
Right, so the government has to step up.
Yeah.
What about those strategic partnerships? We talked about those trade blocs. How can Indonesia use those to their advantage?
Well, RCEP is huge for them. It gives them access to this massive free trade zone, so it's easier to export their stuff. And it should attract more investment, but it also means they're competing with a lot more countries now.
It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
They have to really up their game to come out on top.
Exactly. And it's not just about RCEP. They need to build relationships with other countries around the world, not just for trade and investment, but for things like technology, sharing, education, and working together on sustainability.
So they need to be like the ultimate networker, building connections all over the globe.
That's a good way to put it. They need to make alliances, figure out what they're good at, and find ways to work with others to reach their goals.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the government's commitment, strategic partnerships, and what was that third thing again?
Oh, the digital revolution. This is where I think Indonesia has a real chance to shine.
You were talking about e-commerce before
Yeah.
and how that's opening doors for Indonesian businesses. But how else can technology help transform their economy?
There's some really cool stuff happening. Like in agriculture, they're using drones and sensors to improve their crops and reduce waste. And they're using digital platforms to improve healthcare, connect rural communities, even fight illegal fishing.
Wow, so technology is helping them tackle all sorts of problems.
It's pretty amazing.
Wow.
And Indonesia has a lot of young people who are comfortable with technology. They're ready to embrace it.
So there's a feeling of optimism there.
Definitely. They see technology as this engine for growth and progress, and they're putting a lot of resources into building their digital infrastructure and encouraging innovation.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. We've explored so much, the global power shifts, the challenges and opportunities for Indonesia. I feel like I have a much better grasp of what's going on now.
Me too. It's really fascinating to see how everything's connected.
So any final thoughts for our listeners who've been with us on this journey? What's the big takeaway here?
I think the biggest lesson is that the world is changing fast. The old ways of doing things, they don't work anymore. We're seeing a shift in power, a technology revolution, a real focus on sustainability. The ones who can adapt, who are open to new ideas and willing to work together, those are the ones who will succeed.
It's a wake-up call for all of us, right? Not just Indonesia. We need to stay informed, keep learning, and be ready to challenge the way things are done.
Absolutely. The future is up for grabs, and we all have a role to play in shaping it.
Well said. And that wraps up our deep dive into the reshaping of global supply chains. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.